what the difference is, but it allows you, you just take the leg off, you swap out that little locking piece, and it's about 48 bucks. And and like I said, it bridges that kind of locking mechanism and allows you to rapidly deploy them. So I think it's pretty cool. I'm probably going to pick up a set or two to use on some of my cow bipods. And man, that thing is probably, overall probably about the size of a quarter. So I mean, it really is something that's super small, but man, that's something I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Huh. All right. Well, see, and that's what I like this segment, because there's stuff that I haven't seen yet. I'm like, great, more freaking places to spend more money I don't want to spend. But
Hey, at
if
least
you've
it's under
got,
$100, right?
yeah, if you've got a bunch of freaking bipods, though, it's like, man, now that you really like it, but I'm gonna have to buy one and try it and see if it's all that it's cracked up to be and everything else. But
Yeah.
that's exciting. That's like I said, that's a cool thing. It's not necessarily the big shit that's coming out anymore. It's all these little cool, innovative parts that are coming out that you're like, huh, that's cool, and I should have thought of
Mhm.
that. Been
Well,
making
there is something big coming out, and we're actually going to be pushing it. Um, there's been a lot of talk about it for this last year or so, and it's looking like we're gonna finally launch it next week.
So you're just gonna tease us, or are you just gonna what?
Well, the Mars,
Huh?
the Mars. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. We got some last minute things to tighten up, but it looks like next week we're gonna launch the Mars on our website,
Hmm.
and you're gonna have to go to CR2 in order to get one.
Mars. So explain to everybody that's listening, what is that?
So it's let me pull up the actual description of it, so that way I'm not lying to people, because I'll get one word wrong and then somebody will try to crucify me on that. But
Yeah.
it's the Envision Mars. There's actually a couple different versions of it. So for those guys that are going to want one, they're going to have to buy the civilian version if they're not military or law enforcement specifically. But it's the miniature advanced ranging system, and there's going to be the commercial version. So there's going to be the light, and then there's going to be the commercial and the light commercial. So what is just a weapon mounted laser rangefinder. Those have been the kind of the latest trend over the last couple of years, ever since they've kind of become commercialized. Um, Before you had like the Raptor S. For a little while, you had the Silencer Co. I can't remember which one that one was called, but
It's a radius. I have a couple of them.
yeah, the radius. But the ones that were available on the commercial market kind of just were okay. Raptors came out; they were kind of the big dog on the market. There was a couple. You had there was another company. I can't remember what they were. Rheinmetall was out there, but that really was only available to the military. You have L3, which obviously there's the L3 Storms are just absolutely amazing, but they're not even available to the civilian market at all. So pretty much for anybody who wanted one, you had the Raptor or the Radius. So last year around SHOT, the Mars got teased. There's been a few that have kind of been seen out there. I had one at Mammoth last year, so a lot of people got to see that one. And basically, what you got is you got a laser rangefinder that's mounted to your optic. That's the size of a deck of playing cards. It's 8 ounces. Okay, so you're basically gonna co-align that with your optic. So what you're looking at is what your rangefinder is going to be aimed at. As long as you're got your scope zeroed out, of course. And basically, you can stay on your gun, looking at your target with your crosshairs line up on your target, and be able to range your target. And because it's got applied ballistics in it, it's going to give you a ballistic solution. It's got a weather sensor built into it, and it will give you a corrected ballistic solution. So without
What's
coming
what's the
off of your
price tag?
gun. Huh?
What's the price tag on that?
Well, see, that's the thing, and that's the part that kind of hurts everybody's feelings.
It's
So
anything like that that's quality, it's gonna hurt your feelings. That's all there is to
yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, yeah. So I mean, honestly, man, it's going to be probably coming to market right in the 94, $9,500 range.
But if it works, I mean, for those guys that need it, I mean, it should be a phenomenal thing. I mean, I need it? No. Do I want it? Yes. I mean, it's
Yeah,
going to be one of those things that's definitely a Gucci thing that only so
yeah.
many people can afford, but
It is.
cool to
It's going to
have.
be it's going to be a discriminating customer for sure. A lot of people were really hoping they were going to come in less. Initially, they thought they were going to come in around the 85, $8,700 range. Um, I think everybody really kind of hoped for that. Really kind of with availability of the parts that it's taken to make these things. I mean, the global market for these kind of laser modules and stuff like that is it's really difficult. And I'm actually doing a really big study on um, lasers and with some rangefinders. I'm sure you've seen that right now, and really kind of doing some comparisons so that way people can see really kind of what it takes to make a laser rangefinder uh, effective. And what people don't really understand is so. Oh, I've even had people reach out or people comment. People say, "Well, if you can make a bino that can reach 3,000, and it 3,000 meters or yards or whatever, and it only costs $2,000, then why does that weapon mounted one need to cost 9,000?" And it's like, well, the technology that's in your laser rangefinder in your hands and the one that's mounted to the rifle, for one, they're not exactly the same. That's the first thing that most people just don't realize. And second of all, to make it that much smaller, the objective lens that's in a set of binos, you wouldn't want strapped to the side of your rifle.
Too much.
You know,
Yeah, there's too much weight.
it's too much weight, it's too much size, and laser rangefinders and their effectiveness is dependent on the objective lens. And so, if you were willing to have another essentially optic strapped to the side of your gun, yeah, you're right. You could absolutely make those things for a lot more affordable price, but people aren't willing to accept that. And that was like, when Trigicon came out a couple years back with that Ventus, that handheld lidar, and they were like, "Hey, this is a $5,000 handheld lidar," and everybody was like, "Wait, this thing can read the wind, and it's handheld. It could give me a distance to the target, and it could read wind, like literally, actually read the wind." And everybody was like, "What is this?" But it never actually hit the commercial market. It was just kind of announced at SHOT Show like 3 or 4 years ago, whatever it was. Well, I went to sit down with those guys because I was still working for the Department of the Army in their sniper development position. And I went to talk to them about it, and I was like, well, what's limiting this thing from being able to, you're saying 500 yards right now, what's limiting us from being at 5,000? And they were like, the size, really. And it's not so much the size of the processor itself, but it's the size of the objective lens. They're like, if we could give you this thing in the size of, rather than the size of a binocular, but more the size of like a shoebox, or the size of like a vector, or the size of, you know, um, an LRTV, yeah, we could make this thing go thousands of yards. But the problem is the hunter is not going to carry that, and we're trying to make this in a form factor that a hunter would carry. So that's why we're launching a 500-yard device right now. And so that's kind of the things that people don't understand is like, in order to get what you want, it's got to be small, and in order to be small, it's going to be expensive because the technology is just not there right now.
Yeah, I get that. And that is the hardest part for somebody. They're like, oh, this is stupid. Where would I ever use this? And, it is one of those things that you've got to buy and you've got to make it worth the while in your head. And I like the where you've gone with the ranging binos, because I've had a lot of those questions too. And I'm like, I just don't have time to sit down and test them all. Can I get them? Yes. I've looked through the 10Ks. I absolutely, in my opinion, I hate the blue haze on them, especially in hunting. I want it a little bit more clear so I can see a little bit more in color, because they, like in hunting aspects, a lot of people have told me you either see movement or you see color. Not everybody can see both when it comes down to it. And when they have a blue haze, you can't see color. So the only thing you can really see is the movement of the animal, which is great in some things. But I found out in quite a few situations this year that I had to see the color of the animal in the bushes too. So, I mean, there's always pros and cons to it. And I know the NRL hunters kind of brought a lot of this, portions of it to light, because they're like, well, how do we get faster? How do we get better? Back when I was working for Remington and Barnes, we did what was it was a tracking point system, and the tracking point system, the concept of it was awesome,
Mm,
but the way that the scope worked and the clarity of it and everything else just was never that awesome, especially for the price tag of the damn thing. It was just nuts. Um,
yeah.
it was a cool thing, but then again, only so many people could afford that too. But
Right.
we sold a Sheik like 10 of the damn things once. It was
Yeah.
freaking nuts.
Yeah, and I can't specifically speak to why there's a blue tint on the Sig binos. I can only provide some conjecture, because Sig has, from my understanding, never specifically come out and said why there's a blue tint. Um, so just understanding lens coatings, I'm this like I said, this is just Chris's opinion. Um, they've probably chosen that tint because they're trying to make certain colors appear to have more contrast. Um, Manufacturers will choose different color tints, different color lens coatings in order to achieve certain effects. It's the same thing on all kinds of different scopes. When you see a hunting scope that says, oh well, it's got this much light transmission, so on and so forth. There's a certain effect that they're trying to achieve, and um, without going too far down the rabbit hole, and also understanding that I'm not an optical engineer, um, they're trying to achieve a certain effect. That blue tint makes like browns and greens appear really well. So even in the pictures that I've posted lately, I understand that that is an iPhone on a phone scope through binos, then also compressed down really far in order to be able to post to social media. So what you're seeing there isn't even what my eye saw when I was on the range. Um, and so people need to understand that first and foremost. Um, but you can see that the different lens coatings are allowing you to see things differently. Some people are translating that to be good or bad, and it's not necessarily that cut and dry. Okay, so in the Sig binos, it's definitely apparent that in that particular lighting at that particular moment in time, there are certain colors that are showing up a whole lot better than they are in some of the other binos. Now, that being said, there's certain definition of colors that are showing up better in the other binos at that particular moment in time. And so we have to assume, because like I said, SIG just hasn't come out to tell any of us, they haven't been forthcoming with it, that that was the effect that they were trying to achieve. I believe because there has been such a big hunting focus with those binos that their point was to make a deer or a type of live game pop against the background that they would naturally be living in. You want a tan or a brown deer to appear in tans and brown natural environment. Well, the way you do that is with lens coatings. And that's probably why they chose that lens coating. Now, to the untrained and uneducated or opinionistic consumer, they're going to say this thing looks like crap because it's blue. Well, it's the same reason why most people don't like to look through blue night vision. Most people don't even realize blue night vision exists. But blue phosphorus, white night vision, is actually one of the best night visions and the easiest on your eyes to look through. But we've all become accustomed to seeing white night vision in movies and think that white night vision is the best night vision for us to look through. White phos, that's the best. It has to be the best. Well, it's not necessarily the best, and it's actually pretty harsh on our eyes. But we naturally assume that it's the best because it's what's in the movies, it's what the special operation guys have used for so long, and so on and so forth. But it's because of our or like not having the education on what's truly going on with night vision. And it's kind of the same thing that we have going on now with this blue tint in these SIG binos.
And it could be the way it picks the laser back up as it comes back, you know, as
and that's absolutely true too. And because they haven't been forthcoming with that, we just honestly don't know. Now, some of the things that I've been experiencing with this while going through this test is, I will tell you that blue definitely does not do well with grays, and it definitely does not work with grays, whites, and blacks, and differentiating between those in low light conditions. So right there in those pictures, it was overcast, but it was overcast in the middle of the day. So as we got to about that 4:30 time frame, with the sun was setting around 5, there was some times that it was getting really difficult to pick up targets, especially when we had like a whitish gray target set in front of a whitish gray kind of backdrop. We were having a very hard time seeing it with that blue tint on those SIG binos. Now, we could range it very well, but we couldn't see it very well. Where when we got with those, like the Leica binos, no problem. You could pick it up right away.
Yeah, and that's interesting. One of the big issues that we've had out here out west is bright days with snow. It just screws with lasers like crazy because of the light refraction off the snow and everything. And even with, you know, my handheld laser rangefinders, I've had nothing but issues sometimes trying to get that. You know, if you're on a late season elk hunt or something, trying to get that. I mean, there's just so many variables that come into testing that type of stuff. But I could tell by your picture. I'm like, yep, I know which one's which, because the Leica, in my opinion, out of all of them, probably has the best quality of picture.
Glass.
Glass. It is, but the question is everything inside the same quality as the glass? Because the glass doesn't mean shit if it can't range worth a damn.
Well, and that's the thing is, so we're crunching the numbers right now. I'm trying to find not find, but I'm working up a good way to actually present the numbers for the ranging, because we were able to take these things. So I mean, we took them all the way out to 2,500 yards. Now those were on pretty good sized targets, because truthfully, that's the only thing we could get a return on was in those conditions was pretty good targets. But we did everything from 10-inch circles to humanoid sized targets. We got humanoid sized targets all the way out to around 1,500 yards, and then I got vehicular targets all the way out to 2,500 yards. So we were able to get the performance on those in some hazy conditions, and then also in some rainy conditions. So I'm going to be presenting that information here pretty soon. I would have liked to have been able to show the performance of these rangefinders in snow. I was up in Michigan a couple weeks ago, but I just wasn't able to compile all of these different sets of rangefinders in time in order to do that. So I'm not going to be able to show snow, but we were able to get full bright exposure sunlight, limited visibility. We were able to get into some kind of hazy, foggy conditions, and then we were also able to get into straight up rainy conditions. So I feel like it's pretty good comparison. And we even got a control group into. So I got the 4 standard range finding binos, and then I also have threw in a control group of just a handheld Leupold RX 2800, just for comparison's sake, to see what those range, those kind of high dollar range finding binoculars would do compared to a $500 handheld laser rangefinder, because there is a substantial amount of difference between the lasers and then obviously the binocular versus a monocular, just to see for performance. And it was actually kind of surprising.
Yeah, that, and then I've heard through the grapevine. Well, I had Tim Lesser from Loophole on like a month or two ago, and he kind of hinted that Loophole was working on something. Because why wouldn't they? They've got to
Right.
be there with everybody else putting out a quality product. So I could see that. I'm kind of excited to see what happens at Shot and through 2023, and because with competition comes better stuff. So
Mhm.
that's definitely one of those things I'm looking forward to. So I want to, of course, thank one of our sponsors, Utah Air Guns. They've supported us for now a few months. Excited because they just teamed up with FX for the all new Pantera. It's a new NRL 22 killer is pretty much how they're marketing it. Super accurate, long range pellet built for slugs only. Cool thing. Go check it out. It's on Utah Air Guns site. And of course, if you're going to get into air guns, don't go anywhere else beside Utah Air Guns because they'll take care of you. They'll get you scored away. Appreciate them, of course. Justin, the team's phenomenal. But go check out their website. They've got a lot of stuff. I'm on there again, spending freaking more money that I shouldn't be spending, but I had to buy some suppressors, some compensators, what they call it, but some different things for my FX. But go check out Utah Air Guns. So one of the big things that I wanted to hit is we kind of agreed or came to the conclusion that you needed to come to Utah and teach a class in 2023. And I kind of wanted to hit that real quick and just kind of explain for everybody listening, because I get a lot more listeners throughout the podcast than I do live. So for all of you listening, we are going to do a CR2 / long range tactics course. Chris is going to come teach it. Hell, I think I might even take it so that I'm always trying to learn and evolve and adapt and do things. But kind of give us a breakdown of how you run your CR2 courses so people that might be interested can kind of understand what they'd be getting themselves into.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm glad that you threw the invite out there. It's funny too, because so I was sitting down with my marketing director today, aka Mrs. Roberts, and uh, so it's funny actually. She's more suited to do her job than I am to do mine sometimes. Um, but we were coming up with our graphic for the 2023 schedule, and this year's like CR2 comes west because I'm actually only doing like one East Coast class. Everything else is West Coast this year, or at least the western half of the country. But so yeah, I mean, we'll be out there 17 and 18 June. And we're going to do a 2-day this time. Honestly, just with how the market looks right now, and uh, not only the market but just the economy and ammo and everything else like that, we kind of decided that going with a 2-day was just going to be a little bit easier on people. From one, affording the course, two, they weren't going to have to take time off of work, ammo constraints, everything else like that. I'm even looking at revising what our ammo requirements are going to be for that 2-day course. So right now it does say 200 rounds. We're probably not going to need that. A lot of times in our 3-day course, we don't even technically get through 200 rounds. Guys, a lot of times will leave with a little bit of ammo. But the way we run our course typically is, we come in and we do a shot process evaluation just to kind of see where everybody's at, and then we go into our shot process class. We kind of talked about that in the last class. I run shot process, which is a little bit different than the traditional kind of fundamentals of marksmanship, and that's because I believe that shooting is a process more than it is hard and set fundamentals. That doesn't mean that what most people think of as fundamentals aren't there, but we have I think, a broader understanding of what truly is fundamental and what's not, and how to adapt those to the situations that we find ourselves as a shooter. And without going too much farther into it, kind of rehashing our entire last podcast, um, that's kind of how we do that. And then we spend a decent amount of time going into actually a rifle setup, because what we find out more often than not is a lot of people's poor shot process is a symptom of their poorly set up rifles. They're working with rifles that aren't set up for their body composition, and that is it's playing hell on their ability to shoot their rifles accurately. And so, you know, I'm one of those people, that rifles don't fit me well. Okay, I'm 6'1", I'm nearly 300 pounds. I have the wingspan of a freaking albatross, but I have a really thick chest. I also have neck and thoracic spine degeneration from years of military service. And so, like, I'm kind of one of those people that, I shouldn't be able to shoot a gun accurately because I'm not comfortable behind one most of the time. But I can shoot a gun accurately, and I can get comfortable behind one because I can set them up comfortably for me. So when I get a really small framed woman, when I get a freaking giant for a man, when I get that, older person that comes to the class, we can fit the rifles to them, assuming that they have equipment that is adjustable. And so we take that time to really kind of get their rifles set up to them, because what we've seen throughout the years is just so much dogma in the shooting industry that we have fixed butt stocks, fixed length of pulls, non-adjustable cheek pieces, you know, um, stocks that cause people to be reaching with the very tips of their fingers all the way up to their triggers, because their grips are so far away from their trigger wells to you know so on and so forth, that they just can't get rifles set up to them. They're cocked off to the side and whatever it might be, just because that's how the industry has presented rifles to us for so long. And so that's something we don't have to do anymore. That's not the way our equipment is designed as much anymore. And so, since we can do better, we feel that it's our job to show our students better. So we spend some time doing that, and then we go straight into drills. In our 3-day course, we never leave 100 yards in the first day. In our 2-day course, obviously, we're going to do a little bit different than that. But and I can tell you that first half to 3/4 of the day on our first day, we're going to be shooting a lot of drills, because we're going to be reinforcing that shot process and just getting you comfortable. Because honestly, if you can't shoot those tight groups, then there's no point in taking you out to that 1,000 yards, because you're just not going to be successful. So we're going to be shooting a lot of drills. We're making sure guys are consistent and they're accurate, and then we're going to start pushing them to distance.
All right.
On
How
day
many
two,
slots are you selling?
I can't remember exactly what did we agree on for that course.
Ah,
Uh, 15 or 16 slots in that class, I think.
okay. There's plenty of room, so yeah, that's fine.
Um, and then on day two, we're gonna continue going to distance. We're gonna cover a little bit more in ballistics. It's gonna be a pretty low level. We're not gonna go super in depth. Honestly, there's not a whole bunch of point in talking about barrel whip or freaking seating depth, and because honestly that stuff's just not going to make you a better shooter, because that's what I'm there to do, is make you a better shooter. So if you want to go read one of Todd or Brian Litz's books on the nuances of ballistics, that's great. I encourage you to do so, but I'm not going to be able to get that down in the weeds in 2 or 3 days. So, and it's not going to make you a better shooter, right? It's going to make you a more informed shooter, and I wholeheartedly encourage that. But that's not what I'm there to do. I'm there to teach you the mechanics of shooting. So we're going to teach you just what you need as far as knowledge is concerned, or information is concerned, what you need to be successful on the range, and then we're going to go out and we're going to hammer that stuff home. So, and we're going to finish out the last day shooting a lot of positional stuff, and pushing you a little bit outside of your comfort zone, and having you shoot those rifles to their max effective range, your max effective range, really.
Yeah. So just so you listeners know, just a little bit about the range itself. So it's located right here by me, just west of Nephi, Utah. So it's almost right dead center in the center of Utah. It's about 90 minutes away from Salt Lake International. So it's a quick drive down. We've got multiple hotels in the area, a couple brand new ones that are super nice. KOA if you want to pull a trailer, that kind of stuff. we've got a great place to stay here. A lot of places to eat. I'm actually going to try and get maybe a caterer one day to come out and bring us some food. We can have our campfire sessions. I like doing that with the after action type stuff, and I'm sure Chris does too.
Yeah.
The range itself is completely private, so we won't have to fight with anybody to be there. We've got targets every 100 yards out to, I want to say 1,200, 1,300 yards. So you're going to have the ability to, stretch your guns and do all that. And it's, like I said, it's about 10 minutes or less from the hotel to the range. So it's super quick. We'll be out there. It'll be a good time. It is the high desert, so it'll be warm by then. Probably, I want to say 80s, 90s, probably by then, usually hot and dry like it is every year. But it should be a great class. Now, I do have 4 rifles that I loan to people. They are the Boring Gamer rifle, which, just to give the shout out to Boring, just took Ballistics Best Precision Rifle of the Year. So shout out to Karsten and the team for doing that and building that. But it will be that exact rifle. I've got 3 or 4 of them, I think. So if you don't have a rifle to shoot, get the ammo. I can tell you what ammo to buy. You can borrow the guns, and I'm sure Chris might have some too. But it might help so you don't have to pack so many with you when you come anyway.
Yeah.
But so that's the breakdown of the class. So here's what I say. I say it almost every freaking podcast episode: invest in yourself. You've got to invest in yourself, because I can go out there and I can buy the most expensive optics, rifles, everything, but without me having the knowledge to operate that equipment and to be proficient, then you're never going to be the great shooter that you want to be without spending it. Now, it was six something for 2 days.
650.
650 cheap. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of these classes around here from these high end hunting places that are $1,000, $2,000 for a freaking 2-day course. So 650 is a drop in the bucket, and I guarantee you'll get more out of it than just going to the range and wasting ammo. So something to think about if you're listening. There was something I hit last week. I had a kid named Reese Thompson. Everybody kind of knows him as Reese on the range on Instagram and stuff. He's been doing a phenomenal job, but I kind of wanted to hit this with Chris.
Okay.
And he brought up something kind of that made me think more about this. Now, we all have New Year's resolutions. We try to make a plan for the year, but how many people actually sit down and come up with like a shooting resolution, or what do I want to see in the next month? What do I want to see in the next 6 months? What do I want to see in the next year about me competing or just becoming a more proficient shooter? And I kind of wanted to go down that road with you, as you've taught a lot of classes and different things. And what would you tell people to kind of structure their goals for shooting in general, I guess?
Man, that's a good question. So this last year, I've actually picked up a couple students that I've actually I've done in-person training with now, but I've been doing some virtual training with, and um, because I do virtual with them, I'm not with them most of the time, and so I give them a lot of drills, and then we do go over a lot of the footage from their competitions and the drills I ask them to shoot and stuff like that. But some of the biggest things that we go over a lot is the mental aspect of shooting, because I feel like when it comes to shooting, yes, shooting is physical. Okay, there's a physical action that you have to take in order to shoot and hit a target, but whether or not you're going to hit that target is decided before you pull the trigger. Um, and so um, I'm a big believer in not only mental preparation, but also in in your mental resiliency. So for shooters for this year, you know, being that the economy is the way it is, everybody's pocketbooks are a lot tighter than they have been in the past. If you want to grow as a shooter, of course, shoot as much as you possibly can. I would absolutely highly recommend you come up with a plan for what you're going to do and grow as a shooter. But the first place I would look at is how to grow my resiliency as a shooter. Um, so, and that probably sounds, um, a few of your listeners are probably like, well, okay, well, what the fuck does that mean? you know, um, you know,
Explain to me what you're talking about.
um, so there's a guy I know. It's funny. I forget what he goes by, but his name's Joseph Plandowski. Um, Very large man. Looks nothing like you would expect for your average shooter. I don't even know how much shooting he actually does, but he does mental resiliency stuff for the Army, and he's pretty involved with a lot of the quantified performance stuff. I know you had was it Ash on the
Yeah,
podcast not too long ago.
yeah, Ash stuff.
He Yeah, he's at a lot of the quantified performance matches, and I know he was pretty integral with a lot of the stuff that Ash did with the Army, and writing some of the new doctrine and stuff. But when we run our precision rifle level 2 courses, he comes to those, and we have him teach mental resiliency stuff because, believe it or not, that's actually our PR2 classes isn't so much about advanced level shooting so much as it is about planning and preparation and things of that nature and mental game. But one thing that he talked about was, he had a tree that had come down in his neighborhood, so he went, he cut it up into into sections, and he brought it to his yard or something like that, and he decided that, hey, he was gonna quarter this thing up, and he was gonna cut into he was gonna split the wood and use it for firewood. And so he got out there, and he squared up on a log, and he had his axe, and he went to you know split a piece of wood, and he hit it, and it the blade sunk in, and it didn't go very far, and it didn't split. He was like, oh, okay, well, you know guess I haven't really done this in a long time. So he worked his blade free, and he did it again, and kind of to the same effect. And so after he had done this a handful of times, he's sweat's dripping down his brow, and he hasn't really gotten very far. And so now he's like, oh man, I'm really not very good at this. And after a little while, he's missing where he's hitting. He's not hitting in the right spot, and he's not being very successful. And he's like, dude, I'm terrible at this. I'm never gonna get through this pile of wood I have. Like, what have I gotten myself into? Clearly, I need to work out more. Whatever else. And he realizes that he's on this downward spiral of negativity, and he's actually being counterproductive because of the things that are going on in his mind. And so he takes kind of a step back, and thinks about, okay, well, like, what am I doing, what am I trying to accomplish? And I may be telling this story, Rama, that's not really the kind of the point here. But so if anybody has heard the story before, hold on a second here. But he he takes he takes a step back, and he's thinking about, well, what am I trying to accomplish here? Well, what I'm trying to accomplish is, I'm trying to split this log. Okay, well, in order to split this log, what do I got to do? Well, in order to split this log, I've got to swing this axe, and my blade's got to land centered on this chunk of wood. Okay, well, in order to do that, I need to take the axe over my head. I've got two hands on the blade, or on the axe handle. My hands are when it's over my head, are spread apart, and then I got to swing it over my head. And while I'm swinging over my head, my the one hand has got to slide across the handle, come together. I've got to look at where I'm trying to hit, and guide the blade into that spot. And I need to swing with my upper body and torso and arms, all in one unison, and then come down in a chopping motion that we all naturally instinctively know as being human beings, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then, land with all that force, right there square on the log, and, so on and so forth. And when he does that, he hits, pretty much exactly where he meant to hit. And it sinks in there, and it's a nice solid hit. And he's like, okay, that was really good. So he works his blade loose, and he thinks about it again, and he's like, dude, that was really good. I did a good job. So he's like, okay, well, I'll just think through that process again. So he thinks through it again, and boom, he hits it again, splits that big log in half. And he's like, all right, so he takes the log, stands it back up, and he just continues to do that. And he's telling himself, like, hey, when I think about it like this, and I'm, whatever, I'm doing a good job. And he continues to do this over and over again. And as he's doing it, he's seeing the fruits of his labor and the progress he's making, and he's getting some elation, and he realizes like how well he's doing, and he's telling himself this, like, I can do this, I can be successful, I do know what I'm doing, and yes, it's tough, but I can accomplish this task. And so after a period of time, he finishes his task. And that's something that we do as human beings, period, but that's something we do as shooters, and we see it all the time. If you've ever RO'd a match, or if you've ever gone to a match, you ever seen a shooter, you ever see a shooter who just can't miss a target fast enough? They miss that first shot, and then they take a second shot and they miss it, and then a third, and then a fourth, and then a fifth, and then a sixth. And you're like, dude, you're literally shotgun patterning around that target.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go to the next stage and they just melt down.
Yep.
That's what they've done.
Me. Half the time. Oh, well.
Yeah. And then they come off the stage and they're throwing their game changer. They're pissed off. And what happens sometimes too is the next thing you know, they go and they freaking ND, or they flag somebody, or they're just unsafe or whatever, because they have lost their mental capacity to do what they needed to do, because they have lost all resiliency. And those guys who have the good mental game, they can prosper even in tough situations, even when they make mistakes.
Yeah, I've seen that 100,000 times. Like, coming into a match, where's your game at? Where is your mind at? Are you positive that you're going to have a good time? Are you coming in, oh shit, it's windy, I'm going to suck today, I'm going to do this? I can see a lot of that coming into matches, and I've been working on that myself personally a lot, like putting myself, and the other thing was I would get in my head too much, and like I was getting to the point to where like it was so much about the competition part of it, I wasn't having fun anymore. And when I took that step back and I started having fun again, I started BSing in between stages, and I started helping new shooters out. All of a sudden, guess what? My rankings started going up and up and up and up. And I'm like, wow, for so long I've just been fighting with myself. It was never the optics, it was never the rifle. I mean, we kind of talked about that with Reese last week about making excuses too. We can come in and make excuses, but in the end, it's the freaking Indian. Like, okay, you just missed two off to the right. Whose fault's that? You should have, if anything, you should have only missed one. The second one you should have corrected and made that shot. So in your own brain, how are you training your brain to evaluate? Okay, I missed. This is what I need to do to correct it. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do recently with my brain. And then the next thing is, I'm sure you're in the same boat, is helping new shooters skip a lot of the negative points to where, like, hey, here's what you need to look for, because no one ever told me that. I didn't do that. I tried to suck it up and learn on my own and not go to classes. But then after I started going to classes and I started seeing what I was doing wrong, the light bulb kind of went off.
Yeah.
And then I started understanding it, kind of your point, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We're in agreement there.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm a big believer. Where I'm at mentally is where I'm going to be at in a competition. It's not all about competitions, because obviously I realize probably a lot of your listeners don't compete. But where I'm at mentally is where my range session is going to be at. It's where my hunt is going to be at. So I would say to all the listeners out there, if you want to develop yourself as a shooter for this next year, uh, the mental game is probably one of my number one things that I would want to work on. It's the number one thing I'm going to work on.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. The other thing that a lot of you can kind of set a goal to is, set a goal for, so many minutes a week or, maybe 30 minutes a week or something into, dry fire practice because,
Sure.
it could go from just pulling the trigger and figuring out your trigger squeeze and, the way you're running your bolt to how do you get into position faster? You could set up a
Hmm.
timer and set up a ladder or set up something and figure out where your mistakes are going. And that type of stuff doesn't cost you any money, costs zero money.
Sure.
And with ammo the way it is, with primers the way it is, with powder, that's just one of those things that can help you be a more proficient shooter. It doesn't matter if you're a competitive person or a competitor or not. As a hunter, I want to get the best to be the most ethical for my hunt too. And I want
Yeah.
to try and figure out, okay, what kind of positions would I, if okay, I'm hunting Rocky Mountain region, there's trees, there's fences, there's this kind of stuff. So what around my house can I pick up? And kind of practice getting behind the rifle at a kneeling or utilizing something in my house that would kind of be the same as a tree or something like that. And I think that should be on everybody's training agenda, moving forward too, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah.
do you
Yeah,
use
for
a do
sure.
you use a dry fire system?
I'll be honest, I don't dry fire nearly as much as I should. I do have a DFAT. I have used it some. Um, and yeah, I even when I'm not using it, I will dry fire in the garage. I'm pretty good at picking up nuances in my dry fires, even when I'm not using like the DFAT. But yeah, economy of motion is big for me when I do dry fire or even when I'm live firing. I think about you know I do everything slow. I don't do anything fast, even when I fall. I swear to God, I fall in slow motion. Um, so um, going fast for me is like slow for the average person. So I try to do as few things as I can. Like when I'm on the clock or when I'm on the stage, you know, there's a lot of people who don't think about the like how can I minimize the amount of things I have to do on the clock. And so, and I think it kind of all goes back to that thought process or the shot process. So, when I think of natural point of aim, I want to approach my rifle straight from the rear. And when I'm approaching a barricade, if I can approach a barricade straight from the rear, that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to say, okay, where's my target? Where's the thing I have to shoot from? And where can I start from? If I can start from directly behind a barricade, which will allow me to approach a target from directly in line with that, I'm going to do that. But a lot of people they'll start from the side. And it's like, well, did they say we had to start from the side? Or can I approach it straight on? You know, did I start with my bag in my hand, held to the bottom of my rifle? With my hand holding my game changer spread apart so it can naturally fall on top of that barricade, or am I holding it by the strap like I'm going on a picnic? Like, am I going to have to swing my bag up until it's on top of a barricade and then try to settle it and then throw my rifle down? And then, oh, by the way, it's trying to slide off my bag now and I've got to readjust it. And then I've got to address my rifle and so on and so forth. Or am I, when they say, hey, is shooter ready? Am I in a posture that says, yeah, I'm ready to get into this fight if I'm ready to approach the stage, like that's the kind of things that I look for and I think about when I'm doing this stuff is, that's seconds off the clock, or that's seconds when I'm on the clock that are going to affect my overall ability to be successful because I'm not fast. I'm going to do things slowly, you know? And so, with like the quantified performance matches, they had kind of looked at all the scores, and because they do a time plus and they use the shot timers, they published a thing after one of the matches in arena that based off of what they had seen, if you didn't have your first shot off on a stage within 17 seconds, you were not going to finish the stage without timing out. And so, and it kind of held true for that entire match, that in very few occasions, 17 seconds was the cutoff. And, 17 seconds sounds like a long time, but when you've got to engage 10 or 15 targets in 90 seconds, it's not. It's absolutely not.
Yeah, and I ran into that problem a lot. When I was a newer shooter, is like I was in such a hurry trying to miss that I wasn't going slow making. Like I would rather not finish a stage and have 4 impacts than finish a stage with 10 seconds, 20 seconds left and only have 2 impacts. Like that's the thing, is like slowing everything down to a point. Like we've talked about, watching the top guys in the world, how methodical they are and how everything is just so smooth, and the way that they break everything down in their heads. And I'm like, I have got to figure out how to go fast but slow the process down enough to where I can go through that stage or that course of fire or whatever and be the most efficient and getting rounds off, and understanding that if I do miss one, what happened? And that's been a real struggle for me forever. And I'm sure it is for a lot of people, but you know, how do you now incorporate that into your training aspect too of that, time thing? And I guess is what I'm trying to say. But there's so many of those little things that break down. You're in such a hurry that you just totally miss steps too, and that's a hard one for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. All right. What else do you want to hit, homeboy?
Man, I think that's about it. Oh, dude, I don't know if you saw. We're having a blowout right now. And I say that, and you guys are going to hear this and then get on there and probably find that there's not a whole lot left. But so CR2 capitalized, this last year, we wanted to provide a well-rounded capability development to our customers. We constantly had customers coming to us asking us about equipment, and for me, I come from working as a capability developer for the Army. What that means is I was providing advisement to senior leaders on procurement for equipment, advising force modernization, advising training updates, and kind of the full, we called it .mil PF, so doctrine, training, material, so on and so forth. And when we started CR2, we kind of looked at it. We're like, hey, the first thing we're going to tackle is going to be the training side. I was already doing a little bit on the consulting side when I left my job with the Army. And so now, as things have developed, we're doing training, we're doing consulting, we're doing a little bit more on the material development with a couple companies, and we're doing a couple other things I can't talk too much about. And then also now we're doing a little bit on the retail side. So being able to provide a full package to our customers. So I don't have an FFL. I don't sell guns or anything like that, but I do sell accessories, ammo, things of that nature. And honestly, I'm not really looking at trying to become rich off of it, but I want to make sure that, my customers are taken care of. So one thing that I did was I noticed a while back that I had accounts set up with a couple of different companies, and one of those was Norma, and they had dropped their prices dramatically on the retailer side. And so I knew some of the people over there, reached out to them, and I kind of asked them, like, what's going on? This is a little sus. And basically they were just like, hey man, we're closing out our inventory for the end of the year, because a lot of people don't know, but the Norma that a lot of people got upset about with the whole Prime and everything else that happened a couple years ago is not the Norma that is the Norma now. Okay. Norma was actually purchased by Beretta in the last couple of years. So the Norma that people knew before isn't even the same Norma anymore. If you buy Norma now, it's still for the most part imported from overseas, but it's actually owned by a different company now, and it's actually coming from, when you order ammo from Norma, you're ordering from Georgia, Savannah, Georgia specifically. It's coming out of a warehouse here, and they're actually starting to produce some of their ammo here in the United States. That's because of supply issues, distribution purposes, reasons, and so on and so forth. A lot of those companies that were historically European companies are starting to open up U.S. branches, essentially, and that has a lot to do with DoD and other reasonings. So I was like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for us to be able to kind of expand what we're doing, and essentially, I ordered as much ammunition as I possibly could afford to order, and we got a pallet's worth or more of 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, and 6.5 PRC. And I basically marked it up as little as I possibly could in order to not lose my ass. And so right now, if you have paid attention, Norma doesn't even have 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, or 6.5 PRC to sell, but I still do. I actually walked into Academy the other day and saw 6.5 Creedmoor from Norma on their shelf for $49 a box, and I still have it marked for under 30.
Yeah, you need to raise your prices.
Not doing it. And honestly, it's not to undercut anybody, but because we didn't get into this business to rip people off. We got into this business to provide for our people. So I'm selling it until it's gone.
So they come to your website, CR2.
Yeah, they go to our website and they'll find a link over to the CR2 supply cage. You remember from your time in the military when you were going to go on mission and you're going to do whatever you needed to do. When you needed something, you went to the supply cage to get it issued. So that's kind of where we come from. So we built the CR2 supply cage. That's where you can go to get night vision. That's where you can go to get, your weapons accessories. That's where you can go to get your radios. That's where you can go get your ammo. Whatever you need that we have, it's on the CR2 supply cage. You could also just Google CR2 supply cage. We've got ammo on there. I've still got 6.5 Creedmoor. I've still got 308. I've still got 6.5 PRC. I still got a little bit of 223 left. I still have 9mm on there. And it's pretty unreal what the prices are. Shipping is what shipping is. I mean, it's the holidays. Ammo has to go ground. So some people have been like, oh, well, your shipping is, why don't you have free shipping? Well, hey guys, because shipping isn't free.
No,
that's why I don't.
Expensive.
Yeah.
Super expensive.
But I'm not making money on shipping. It's literally whatever UPS costs me is what I charge people. So, and honestly, the system figures out what shipping is. So shipping is going to be whatever it costs to get to you in Washington. I don't know. I can't even tell you what shipping is going to be until you enter it into the system. So
it's a damn hazmat thing too, which is BS.
Right. It has to go hazmat. It has to go ground. USPS won't touch it. So FedEx has to do it, or USPS. UPS. Sorry, I have an account with UPS. I can't even take it to a UPS store. I have to take it to the customer care center, and I have to drop it off. So that's just how it is. That's the world we live in. If you're in New York or if you're in California, it has to go to an FFL. That's not Chris. That's not CR2. That's the law. So if you're in Illinois or a couple of these other states, you have to have a FOID card. It's not Chris. It's not CR2. But if you're in the rest of the free world, life's good. I think guys in Alabama are getting it shipped. They're getting whole cases of ammo shipped to them for like $12. So
you can't complain about that.
No.
All right. Well, as soon as I post this, I don't know when this one's going to go out. It might go out. I'll see if I can get it pushed next week, and then that should But whoever wants to watch it live can watch it live. But to the podcast itself, it'll probably go next week. But I've still got quite a few in the queue that, luckily, after hunting and surgery and everything else, I got so far behind now. I'm trying to stockpile them, so I'm not in a
Yeah.
holding pattern for so long anymore. But
Well,
I
I still
appreciate
have
you.
a decent amount.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was saying I still have a decent amount. It's still going out there. We're about halfway through the pile, so
Okay.
by the time you get this up, I'm sure there'll still be a little bit out there.
All right. All right. So in closing, I want to thank our final sponsor, Tac Pack. They just came on. I don't know. It's been a month ago, I think. I just had him on, one of the owners, the other day. Super cool freaking setup. Got a Tac Pack in the mail. I was excited about it. Got some new stuff, and I actually found a couple of new companies and started buying from them because I didn't even know they existed, and it came through the Tac Pack. But if you go to tacpack.com, there's two different signups. There's a little less expensive one, a monthly subscription. I think it's around 40 to 50 bucks. And then the next one's around $100. And then if you use code LRT, you get an extra $70 item in your Tac Pack for your first one. That's just for new subscribers. So go check it out. You can cancel it at any time. So you could go buy a Tac Pack, use the code, and then cancel it. Totally up to you. But it's something you can go check out. You actually get quality, cool shit with it. It's not, garbage stuff. And I was super impressed with it. I did an unboxing. If you want to see that, go to Long Range Tactics on our YouTube, and I can show you what came in the more expensive setup. But anyway, go check out tacpack.com. Thanks, brother. I appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to it. If you have more questions about the shooting course, hit up Chris, CR2 Shooting Solutions. He'll be able to answer those. And then if you need ammo, of course, hit him up and go check out his supply cage for some cool shit. He might have something you just can't live without, and you found it. And I appreciate you coming on, brother. And I'm sure we're going to have you on again. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks a lot, bud.
Thanks, man.